New York City, 1980s, the Bronx was burning, Times Square was not an amusement park, and the subway was riddled with crime. Also in 1984, a regular guy named Bernie Goetz shot 4 unarmed black men in the subway because he thought they were trying to harm him. Goetz became known as the subway vigilante. You keeping up with me?
I got it. Oh, yeah, I read all about it last night.
Tell them.
Oh, my God. It made national news, and no one covered it, like Channel 11. Thank you.
I think it's silly.
Silly? How so, Mr. Goetz?
It's irresponsible reporting.
41 years later, a new perspective on the case goes beyond the subway vigilante and the 4 innocent men he shot. Elliot Williams is an attorney, a CNN legal analyst, and author of 5 Bullets, the story of Bernie Goetz, New York's explosive 80s, and the subway vigilante trial that divided a nation. Welcome. This story is, I mean, again, I'm speaking about it from someone who's just becoming acquainted with it.
Right.
But it is out of control.
It is absolutely out of control.
Bonkers.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely bonkers and out of control. It's, I think, so many roads led through this story, and that's part of what led me to the book. It's when you just think about many of the issues that we grapple with today around race and crime and vigilantes and safety in cities. My God, that's like the biggest national story that we're confronting right now. A lot of that was being crystallized in 1980s New York.
Right, and I was in full disclosure, Ellie and I know each other. We went to Columbia Journalism School together.
Just a couple of years ago, like 2 or 3 years ago.
Like 2 or 3 years ago.
Look great.
Yeah.
And I mentioned at the top, like, everything that was happening in the 80s, and we could literally take out the 80s, except for the Times Square amusement park of it, and we're living, it's what we're living right now. But I wonder, why write this book now?
Yeah, I mean, a few reasons. One, I, having grown up just outside the city, I was born in Brooklyn, remember, quite frankly, from WPIX and local television, this story. And if we all think back to the formative news stories of our youth, they stick with us and how they shape our views of what news is, what race is, what crime is, what safety is, and so on. And then, you know, to the broader point, that is me and my aunt in our alley in Flatbush.
Oh, my God.
Shout out to Brooklyn.
Shout out to Brooklyn, BK. But yeah, so I was 1.5 years old in that photograph. But again, back to all of the issues that we confront today, and many of the key figures from this story are famous figures today.
Yeah.
Rudy Giuliani, Al Sharpton, Curtis Sliwa, Donald Trump, all the above.
Don't go through them too quickly, because we have some of those pictures of the early days, because, you know, this story got national news. And everyone talked about either the victims or Bernie Goetz. You flipped things on its head and talked about how New York City is really a platform for what's happening nationally. Can you talk to that?
Yeah, honestly, think about how many people, even if they weren't that serious, have come out of New York City and run for president of the United States, right? Everywhere from de Blasio to Hillary Clinton to you know, Al Sharpton, Mike Bloomberg, all of these folks. Something about New York creates this crucible for national issues, national politics, Rudy Giuliani being the big one. So what is local in New York City is national or global. The mayor of New York has to have a foreign policy platform. This is a different city than anywhere else in the world, and you see that in some of these big news stories that came out of the city.
It's New York or nowhere.
That's right.
But the depictions, it's interesting, the depictions of what actually happened that particular day.
Yeah.
It's not even just 1 or 2 perspectives. There's a number of perspectives. And it's a testament, and I hate seeing people with their cell phones, but if we had them back then, we would have had a completely different trial.
In fact, yeah, and Al Sharpton, who I interviewed at length for the book, did say exactly that. In the context of, if you remember, Daniel Penny and Jordan Neely, that case, saying that, you know, part of, for good or bad, whatever reason, people could draw their assumptions about what happened there based on what they saw on the video. And in many respects, it was a Rorschach test. People saw different things. One of the great mysteries of the Bernard Goetz case is what actually happened on the train. Was it actually a mugging? Was it a threat? We all know that Bernard Goetz.
Did they attack him?
Did they attack him, and so on? He's got his narrative, but many other people would likely have theirs, and cell phone video probably would have cleared that up.
You actually had a chance to sit down with Bernard Goetz.
Yes.
How did that go? Was he remorseful? Is he the same?
Oh, no.
No.
No, and I actually, how did it go? All over the place. It was a meandering, bizarre, surreal conversation with someone who was unrepentant after 40 years about shooting people that he knew were not armed. And you know, I asked him at one point in the interview, and I detailed this in chapter 27 of the book. I say, did you commit an act of public service? That was my question to him. And he says, those guys needed to be shot. They needed shooting. And it was just, I found it just staggering how, one, the things he was willing to say to me as a black man, never having met, but two, just his almost pride in having committed the shooting even after all this time.
How do you keep, I mean, I'm not a journalist, so I don't know. How do you keep your emotions distant from and write a book that can be understandable on both sides or any side or whatever, unbiased?
Let me tell you a secret. You don't.
Yeah,
and I think you acknowledge, I think you acknowledge that you're part of the story. Some of the most moving parts of the book for me were writing about New York City and writing about places of my childhood and places that were important to me and what I remember even where they were gritty or grimy or dirty. And so I had emotional connections to all of this. I tried to not both sides it. I mean, I think, Bernard Goetz does not come out well in my book. I mean, I make him three-dimensional, but he's not the hero of this book, if anything. And so, you come at it with who you are and what your thoughts are, but try to be fair to everybody.
Unbelievable. We have sadly run out of time, but you have been one of the most anticipated authors and books for 2026 by our friends over at the New York Times, the New Yorker. Can you do something monumental for once in your life?
I'm working on it.
Jeez,
it's immigrant parents though. My dad's like, well,
what are you doing with your life?
What about the Wall Street Journal? They didn't name you. So
Unbelievable. Elliot Williams, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Give him a follow on LinkedIn, on all the things. It's very, very funny. The book is called 5 Bullets. By the way, could you find a longer title?
It's a lot of syllables in this, but the title of the book itself is quite pithy. 5 Bullets.